Good morning. So I thought I'd start my 2020 by going for a walk and at the same time trying to actually get into the whole emotional intelligence discussion we were having yesterday and how we can just become mentally, emotionally stronger and so forth. So I read up on a few things on how to become emotionally strong, but I just felt, whoa, those things were a bit too complicated for my own liking. So I'm gonna try and simplify in my own words and my own understanding what emotional intelligence is all about. So in a nutshell, perhaps I can start by describing what emotional intelligence is. It's basically having a level of intelligence to control your emotions. Obviously, that's what emotional intelligence would be. Or at least that's my thought. Sorry, I'm running out of breath because it's been a minute since I've walked. Anyways, so one somehow has to experience a lot of emotions in order to learn how to deal with your emotions. Because how do you deal with anger issues if you've never been angry before? How do you deal with depression if you've never been depressed before? How do you deal with anxiety if you've never been anxious before? So I think a lot of this emotional intelligence is derived from the fact that people actually go through things and they somehow actually just deal with them as they go through them. Now, I for one, I've dealt with a lot of emotional trauma in my life, and the best way I've somehow overcome the emotional trauma that I've gone through is simply by always playing scenarios in my head. So let's say, for example, something tragic happens in my life and I'm obviously supposed to be sad about it. Well, I actually do the opposite. Instead of being sad, I'm like, okay, but does it help me to become sad? Will the situation change? Will it become better? If the answers are all no, then obviously it doesn't help me. I become sad over the situation. And how do you deal with being bullied, cyberbullying, for example? When people call you nasty names, when people say bad things about you, how do you deal with it? How do you not react? So here's the thing, you need to start learning how to not see the fact that you're the one actually being insulted. Because if someone is insulting me, I basically feel that they're insulting themselves. That's how I look at it. And that's how I don't actually feel anything. When somebody says, "Yo, puss," I'm actually like, wow, this guy just insulted himself. That's what I say in my head. And as a result, I'm obviously able to deal with all those issues on a much better way than one would normally deal with. But then there was a point in my life when I became depressed. And I was really depressed to the point where I actually wanted to end my life. And I recall this very well because it was in 2012. And the depression just got to me, guys. Like, it just hit me. I felt like I was useless. I felt like no one was gonna miss me. I felt like I was a nobody. So what the fuck? What's the purpose of living? That's how I felt. And I was in this dark place, really, really dark place. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what to do. But I was just like, life is not worth it anymore. Let's just end it because it's not worth it. And then on that specific morning when I wanted to end my life, something hit me. And it was that child voice. I call it the inner voice. Everybody has it. And that inner voice in me just said, Michael, what the fuck are you doing, my nigga? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Pardon my language. But what is it that you're doing? What happened to that young boy who always dreamt of big things? That young boy who always thought he was gonna make a huge impact in the world. That young boy who always knew that he was destined for great things. What happened to that guy? And now all of a sudden you wanna end things just because you're in a temporary situation that you don't seem to see a way out. Now you wanna end your life? And it hit me, and I came to my senses and I realized that what is it that we're actually doing? I mean, here we are, depressed as hell, thinking that killing yourself is actually going to be a solution, while in actual fact it's not. So immediately I snapped out of it. And the problem and how I became depressed is I realized that I allowed the noise from outside to get inside of my head. And we often allow things that other people say to get the better of us. And when we allow other people's words to start dictating how we feel, that's basically a sign that we lack emotional intelligence. So from my own experience, I've now developed what I call an anti-negative blocking virus. So what that simply means that if I hear anything negative, I simply block it so that it doesn't enter into my thoughts. Like I just simply block it. Like if I see a negative comment on my page, I block it. I get a phone call from someone and all they're doing is they're being negative, I cut the call. So we need to have defense mechanism in place to actually protect ourselves from people and energies that are just draining. Like they're just people with energies that will drain everything and anything out of you. So I think it's important that we somehow learn how to prevent us from getting into that place where we actually need. Yeah, I think the best word would be prevention is better than cure. So rather than you trying to fight off depression, why not just prevent it in the first place? And the best way to prevent depression is by making sure that you don't get into a depressed state. How do people usually get into a depressed state? Usually it's circumstantial, whereby you overthink things. You know, the biggest problem with human beings is that we have the ability to think. And sometimes we think ourselves into problems. Sometimes the problems don't exist, or the problem does, maybe it's a challenge that exists. But with our thinking, we create new problems. Just with our thinking. And I think this comes back now to us trying to be much more emotionally intelligent in obviously the emotions that we feel and how we react towards others. I personally think in a nutshell that's what emotional intelligence is all about. Like I said, I'm not an expert at this topic, but however, there's a lot of good material on the internet that one can read up on how to become much more emotionally stronger. But word of advice from myself to anyone who's listening right now is that try and always ensure that your thought process is in sync with your emotions. And in as much as it's sometimes difficult to do that, when you realize that your emotions and your thought process are not in sync, it's best that you try and align them. Because sometimes in your thoughts, you want to be happy. But in your emotions, you're still sad. So if you can somehow learn to balance the two, being happy in your emotions as well as in your thoughts, that's, in my opinion, a great step to becoming emotionally intelligent. But nonetheless, there's a lot of material that you guys can read up on and just better yourselves, guys. Like I said, I'm no guru at some of those things that I'm talking about, but at least I'll make an effort to speak about them, because once you start speaking about something, you somehow spark an idea for others to start also thinking about their lives and how to actually improve their lives as well. So with that said, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Those of you who have missed my previous post, you can catch them on my Instagram TV. Alternatively, you can also catch them on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page. My name is Michael Amushalelo, and I'm signing out. Have yourselves a wonderful 2020. Cheers.